Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, produced here in Sydney, Australia. My name's Matt Wakeling, and thank you so much for joining me. Now today, for episode number 85, I speak to one of my heroes, Michael Sweet from the band Stryper. Now, back in the 80s, Stryper were one of the first true metal bands I ever heard, and it changed my world. It rocked my world. The first album I heard was Stryper's Soldiers Under Command, and yeah, I was brought up on a lot of heavy rock and hard rock, but they were definitely the first metal kind of band, with taking their cues from bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. Stryper had a huge career. They were a big hit on MTV. They sold millions of records, toured the world, and for an overtly Christian band, did things in a different way. They shared tours with bands like Bon Jovi and Rat and Motley Crue, and really took their message beyond the four walls of the church. Stryper are still at it. They've just released their 10th studio album, Goddamn Evil, and I spoke to frontman Michael Sweet. Now, Michael, along with Oz Fox, has really formed one of the great twin guitar teams in metal. Their harmony lines are amazing, and they're both excellent soloists in their own right. Michael talks to us about the classic Stryper tone, how he pulled it in the 80s, how he pulls it now. Talks about the upcoming world tour and much, much more. So let's jump straight in. Here's my interview with Michael Sweet. Thanks for your time, Michael. Great to talk to you.
Well, it's nice to talk to you, buddy. You're far, far away in a land far away.
It's true. I'm really excited to talk about the new record and your tour, which you're just about to start. But if you would indulge me for a moment, and if I could jump back a few decades, I remember seeing you guys back in '87 when Stryper toured Australia for the first time, and as a very young Christian, as I was there,
Yeah.
I was 16 and really getting into guitar. You guys wrote some very inspiring music, and more so really encouraged me in my faith. So thank you for what you've been doing.
Well, thank you, man. That's really great to hear, and that's the whole goal. That's why we do this, is to inspire. And it's nice to hear people say that they were inspired by it. So it's very cool. And yeah, Australia, we'll never forget. I mean, we've only been, let's see, a few times back in the 80s, and then recently, not that long ago.
Yeah.
And we're coming back. We're working on coming back this year, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. So back to this year then, and year tour. 2018 it's got to be a pretty great time to be in Stryper.
You know what? I think it's always a great time to be in Stryper. I hope. We enjoy what we do, and we still have fun doing it, and we still get excited about it, and love not just the music, of course, but love the message behind the music. And we're still very, very into that and very passionate about that, and it means a lot to us. It means everything to us, really. So to be able to have the opportunity to still be doing it 34 years later is miraculous. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, fantastic, and lots of great stuff happening right now. So the new album Goddamn Evil's just come out. It's already getting some great reviews in various parts of the press, and it's already all over some of the different Billboard charts as well, which is very cool. And
Now, you mean are you talking about our album Gosh Darn Evil?
I think we can still call it Goddamn Evil in Australia. I don't know if it's been banned here yet. So there's been some controversy about the name. Is that true?
Yeah, and I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, Stryper's always been about not so much sitting down at a table and saying, "Hey, how can we be controversial?" We don't do that, but we do want to release titles and lyrics that make people think, make people talk, and kind of rattle the cages and ruffle feathers, because that's the whole point, You want people to talk about what you're doing and ask questions, and you can give them answers. That's a good thing.
Sure.
So I think a title like Goddamn Evil does just that. It's a title that my brother threw out a few years back, and we didn't go with it at that time. And then I kind of threw it out there again this time around, and we all felt like, yeah, that would work. that's a good title, and especially it's very relevant for today and for our times that we live in now, because there is a lot of evil in this world. There always has been, but there seems to be, uh, it seems to have gone to new heights and different levels. And we see things that we thought we'd never see,
Mm-hmm.
in a shocking way. And to have an album title like "Goddamn Evil," where uh, the way we're looking at it and the way we mean it is looking to heaven and saying to God, "God damn evil," condemn evil. You know, um, it's a powerful thing to say, and I think it's something that people should be asking God to do. People get wrapped up in there's no comma, and you should have said damned evil past tense, and you should have said this, or you should have said it that way. And I think people are just getting too caught up in the small things when they should be getting caught up in the bigger issue at hand.
Sure.
Which is all the issues in the world, man. All the evil that we see going on around us.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me a little of "To Hell with the Devil." That was a really bold album name back in the '80s, but squarely put what Stryper were about on the front of the cover.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, and it was "To Hell with the Devil" back in '86. Wound up really creating a lot of issues, and it got banned from some stores, and so much so that um, we felt obligated to redo the artwork, and we did.
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
know,
remember there was
it,
two
we
covers. Yeah,
we yeah, we changed the artwork, and because we didn't want to alienate people, and we wanted to kind of go with the flow to a degree. And this time around, we didn't change the artwork, we didn't change the title. I guess we could have, to try to blend in and be accepted at all stores and outlets and whatnot. But we just didn't feel that there was purpose in terms of doing that. We
sure.
felt like, yeah, let's stick to our guns. And you know, um, I find it very funny and fascinating that it's uh, it's been banned by, say, Walmart.
Yeah.
They carried it online, but they didn't carry it in the stores.
Okay.
But yet you'll go to Walmart and you'll see albums with explicit stickers stuck all over them, and naked women on the cover,
Sure. Yeah.
and that's fine. It's a real double standard. That's pretty funny, actually. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. This is your 10th studio album. What's the writing process like for this last record?
Pretty much as it's always been, except for, I think in the past, there was more time taken to writing an album. There'd be a few songs written, and then a few weeks would go by, then another song, and a week would go by, and another song. I'm talking in the early days.
Sure.
They were written over a period of time, and then we got to a point, once we had a contract and we were touring, and it was a blur. It was more about going in and not having as much time to write songs. And then now there seems to be less time. And it's really interesting because myself as a writer, I kind of enjoy working under pressure.
Okay.
I don't I don't do well with having a year to write an album. If someone gave me a year to write an album, I probably wouldn't work on it until the last few weeks of the year. Because it's just kind of the way my mind works. Um, I work better under pressure. And if you said, "Hey, write me an album," and you have a week to do it, I would almost get more excited about that than having a year to do it, if that
Yeah.
makes any
Yeah,
sense.
for sure. We spoke to Zakk Wylde, his latest BLS album. Same story. He had a couple of weeks
Yeah,
and he enjoyed the
yeah.
deadline. Sounds like you work in a similar kind of a way.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
cool.
do. I enjoy working well. I work well under pressure. And, some people say, well, you should have more time and spend more time writing. I don't know, man. It doesn't seem to work for me.
Okay.
I really like having a window and being under the gun. And I don't like doing demos.
Okay.
I think it's I think it's a complete waste of energy, because the reason why I think that is I've done demos in the past, and I always find that whenever demos are done, there's always something about the demo you like better than the master.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're pouring your first impression energy into the demo, and then sometimes you can't get that back. And I want all that first energy that's coming out right out of the box to be poured into the real thing,
Sure. Cool. So
not a demo.
how does that work then? So for this record, you've written a bunch of songs, super strong songs too. So under pressure, you've really come up with the goods. How do you then present them to the band without demoing, or are they
You
involved?
just send them. We send back ideas back and forth, and say, hey, check this out, and everyone's like, oh, cool, and then they'll come out to the house, and we'll all sit there and rehearse them and figure it out.
Uh-huh.
We never submit demos. The label asks for demos, and I just simply say no.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting demos. And if they don't like that, and they say, well, that's a deal breaker, then we'll go find another label. It's and it's not to be cold or
Sure.
mean spirited or anything. It's just demos are just a waste for a band like Stryper. If you don't know that Stryper can deliver by now, then no demo in the world is going to prove that. And it's just a waste. So it's just the way I feel. That's
Yeah,
all.
sure. So what we hear on the album, they're fairly fresh takes, I guess. There's a lot of energy on the record. Even the quote unquote ballad is pretty meaty, and the rockier stuff is
Yeah.
is really rocking on this album. Take It to the Cross, that's gets a bit thrashy. That's a fun tune to open the record.
Yeah, we went with that one because it's fun, man. We went with it because it's probably out of all the songs, it's probably the one people would least expect
Hmm.
for us to release as a not only a first song but any song, because it's got the death growl on it, and it's got the take it to the cross, the odd phrasing and whatnot, and it's definitely the most unexpected track,
Uh-huh.
and that's why we went with it. We wanted, the label heard it. Nick, our label guy's like, "Oh man, you got to go with this one," and I said, "Yeah, I completely agree." And it's the most shocking. Um, and then you have songs like you mentioned, "Can't Live Without Your Love." That's more of an expected style from Stryper. But even that, it's not a syrupy piano ballad. Like, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
it's guitar oriented. It's got edge. It's got fire to it.
Hmm.
So it's cool. This album is really high octane. It's got a lot of energy to it.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
single song,
Hmm.
but they're all different. There's no song alike.
I love the tune "Lost." Reminded me of some classic. Striper had the ping pong solo, so I think
Oh, good, man. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. We're gonna add that to the set eventually.
awesome, awesome.
Uh, yeah. Lost has got that classic Stryper uh, feel.
Yeah.
Just there's something that's more classic. The chorus kind of goes somewhere else, but the tempo and the verses and stuff, it's a real classic sounding Stryper song.
Yeah, I was stoked when well, I think Oz took a solo, then you took a solo, and then the harmonies arrived, which did
Yes.
it for me. That was cool.
Well, that's very traditional Stryper, right?
Yeah.
When we do that, we go back and forth, and uh, yeah, I'll start it, and then Oz will finish it, or Oz will start it, and I'll finish it, or we go back and forth, or we'll end in a harmony, or it's just kind of, that's a big part of the Stryper sound. Always has been.
Yeah, awesome. You've mentioned Iron Maiden and Judas Priest as being influences on you guys as a band,
Yes.
and Oz and yourself have really created one of the great twin guitar lineups as well. Tell me about working with him.
Oh man, I mean, you when you find chemistry, it's hard to replace. You can't just you know pick anyone out in the crowd and expect to have that. You know, and that's the thing that we have. We have this certain chemistry and this certain thing that just works and gels and fits, um, regarding vocals, regarding playing, and just the locking in vibe. And we've been playing together for a long time. I mean, my brother and I have been playing together since, gosh, I joined his band when I was 12 years old. I was born in '63, so you're talking about 1975.
Yeah, wow.
And then we met Oz not long after that, and then started playing with him not long after that. And we've been playing together our entire lives. And I think because of that, growing up on the same music and in the same town, and knowing each other for so long, there comes this special, unique quality that you just can't manufacture or produce at the snap of a finger. It's something that's engraved,
Hmm.
and it's deep, and it's really cool. And we have that. Not a lot of bands have that, but we do.
How do you work on those harmony parts? Is it just up to one person comes up with a line and then the other
It, it, you
harmonizes,
know,
or?
yeah. I mean, these days, in the old days, we would sit down and work out stuff like that. Nowadays, because we live in different states, uh, sometimes it's worked out by one guy and sent to the other guy, or it's worked out by the other guy and sent to the other guy, or it's a matter of whatever's most convenient,
Sure.
you know. And whatever works, whatever, not only what's convenient, but whatever sounds the best.
Hmm.
You know, if there's something that sounds great, we'll run with it. If there's something that's not quite right, we'll say, hey, well, why don't we try this, or we can do this. It might be better, or that kind of thing. Uh, but yeah, we kind of have it down.
Yeah. Well, you
We
would by
know
now.
we know. Yeah, exactly. We know how to make these albums. We know how to do this. We know how to write. We know how to put together a good Stryper album, and we know if it's not up to par, and we know if it is.
Sure.
And we've kind of figured it out, and I would certainly hope so after 34 years or
Yeah.
35 years. So yeah, we're enjoying it, man. It's really
Awesome.
cool.
Awesome. Your world tour starts what in the next day or two, pretty much.
It starts. I mean, officially, it started in Italy a few days
Oh,
ago.
okay. Yep. Yep.
We played in Milan, and that was the first show, really. And then we came back, had a few days off. We are now heading to Maryland,
Hmm.
Merriweather, and we play at a festival called M3. And that's, I guess, the first U.S. date.
Okay.
And then we go right from there to Cleveland, and hit the ground running, man. I think we're out for like 6.5 weeks. We go home, and we do fly dates throughout July and August, and then we go and do another ground run later on in the year.
Yeah, it looks like you're booked fairly solidly right through to November. So,
Hmm.
I see there's some Japan dates already confirmed. So if
There are, and we're trying to work it out where we come to Australia too, because I mean Japan's so close to Australia, it makes sense, right?
yeah, yeah, would love to see you here. Um, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you about your guitars. What are you taking on the road? I see you've got a new custom shop Washburn.
Yeah, man, I'm taking a custom shop Washburn, and I'm taking an import Washburn.
Okay, cool.
And the import isn't available yet. The custom shops they're pricey. They're around 3,500 American,
Hmm.
but they're handmade, and they're all upgraded with Floyd Rose upgrades, and fret upgrades, and inlays, and the graphics and everything. It's quite detailed. The import is made in Indonesia, but man, it feels really fantastic. It's a killer playing guitar. And it's gonna hit the streets like any day. As a matter of fact, I need to email Washburn and find out. I believe it's early June
Okay, cool.
is when it's going to be shipped out to all the stores worldwide, and it's going to retail for I think $9.99.
Okay, great, great.
So just under $1,000, and it's a killer guitar, man. It's got the same graphics on the front, Floyd Rose, Duncan design pickups, 24 frets, inlays, all the good stuff. And I'm going to be playing that one as well on this tour.
Cool, very cool. And for amps, are you running everything direct? Are you using your ISP Theta?
I'm using the ISP. That's correct. It's a signature pedal, and I love it. It works for me. It's got that tone, that Stryper Michael Sweet tone, and that half cocked wah,
Yeah,
high
cool.
gain kind of thing. And believe it or not, man, I feed an amp out of it as well,
Okay, yep.
but we wind up just taking the direct out of it into the console, and that's what you hear live.
You do a really interesting thing with your EQ, which has gone back to the early days as well. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the thing that I've always been fascinated with are the tones that with that half cocked wah
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. It's a real squawky, like mid-range boosted
Yeah, yeah.
honky tone. It's always been my thing. I loved Michael Schenker.
Uh-huh.
I still do, one of my favorites, and I always liked his tone, even though it was real clean. I always liked the tone of it and the sound of it. Um, I just watched a movie about Mick Ronson called Beside Bowie,
Okay, cool.
and he was talking in the movie about how he used a half cocked wah
Oh yeah, yeah.
for his tone, and I never knew that, but now that it talks about it, it makes perfect sense because he had that same kind of sound, and that's always been my thing. So when I was really young, I started kind of going out and checking out gear and trying to kind of get that kind of thing, but with my own signature to it, my own sound on top of it. And I wound up buying a Lab Series head. Um, and I was fascinated by that because it had a parametric EQ on it.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to plug straight into that and kind of get that sound, that half cocked wah sound. And then I wound up eventually preamping with that into the front of a Marshall, and then
Okay, okay.
eventually into a Boogie, and then I wound up going to a Furman PQ3, and that's always been my thing, man. And I'm doing the same thing with the ISP.
Cool.
So I run a lot of pre EQ and post, and that's the way I get that sound. And I add a lot of mids to the pre distortion, and then I scoop out mids on the post distortion.
Yeah, nice. It's a cool sound. I mean, a lot of people were scooping the mids in the 80s, but it's
Yeah,
really hard to hear that sound unless it's super loud. But by slamming it in the front end with those mids, you get a lot of presence and
that's
sticks out
what
in
it
the
is.
mix.
That's the difference. Yeah, you see,
Yeah,
by
cool.
adding the mids on the pre, it makes it cut through. It really cuts it out in the mix. I mean, you can hear it. It's got this cutting mid thing that just works, but then I scoop mids out on the EQ, so it's got a real chunky sound to it. And it works, man. The sound guy, our guy Jake, just kind of throws up my fader out there, and he puts a roll off. He does a high pass filter and rolls off from like 100 down, and that's it.
Okay, easy. Nice.
He doesn't have to EQ it or anything. He just throws a fader up, and it's like, yep, that sounds great,
Cool.
and it really works, man. You can listen on YouTube and stuff, and it just cuts out. It cuts through in the mix, man. You hear it.
Yeah, sounds great. And it complements Oz's tone too, which has, I guess,
Yeah,
less of a peak in the mid. So yeah,
exactly. Yes,
works great.
absolutely.
Cool, and you can hear it all over the new record. Sounds great. Sounds really chunky when that kicks in, and it sounds like Stryper when I hear that tone. So that's really
It
cool.
is. It's a very definable. I mean, the minute you hear our guitar tone, um, it's Stryper. It's got this. It's got a very unique sound to it.
Awesome.
Love it or hate it, it's our sound.
That's the sound. Yeah.
And same thing with Boston, or same thing with Queen. There are these certain guitar tones where you hear them, and it's like, oh, that's Brian May, or oh, that's Boston. And I think it's the same thing with Stryper. People know the sound right away.
Great. Well, Michael, great talking to you. I know you're flat out and you've got other commitments today as well. So thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, we hope to see you then in Australia, hopefully later this year.
Yeah, man, that'll be awesome. We'll be looking for you and looking forward to it. And thank you for your time as well and support. We appreciate it, man.
Cheers. Cheers. My pleasure.
Okay, buddy.
Thanks, Michael.
Cheers. Take care, buddy.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye now. All right, there you go. There's my conversation with Michael Sweet from Stryper. And yeah, that was cool. That was cool. I fanboyed a bit up the front. I'll admit that. But yeah, very cool to talk about the new record and all that stuff. So, all right. If you're new to the show, we've got another 84 guests that we've had, another 84 episodes, and probably in not a dissimilar world to Michael Sweet. We've had guitarists a couple of weeks ago. We had John Norum from Europe. I had Zakk Wylde on the show from Ozzy Osbourne's band. Joel Hoekstra, who plays in Whitesnake, and he's also worked with Michael Sweet on some of his solo stuff. But we've also spoken to fusion musicians like Scott Henderson, Brett Garsed, Michael Dolce, plenty of different styles, all sorts of things, ambient players, blues players, prog players. They're all here on the Guitar Speak podcast. So yeah, check out our past interviews. The best way to do it is to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, or if you're on an Android device, you can find us at Stitcher or iHeartRadio, or most places where podcasts are distributed. Just search for Guitar Speak Podcast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Love to speak to you on any of those forums, and you can support us through Patreon. All right, I'm out of here. My name's Matt Wakeling, and thank you so much for joining me on the Guitar Speak Podcast. Catch you next time.